Is Franz Kafka overrated? Joseph Epstein, The Atlantic. Critics have long tended to see him as a modernist master on par with Joyce, Proust, and Picasso. Let's reconsider that. Franz Kafka, The Poet of Shame and Guilt by Saul Friedlander, Yale University Press. Edmund Wilson claimed that the only book he couldn't read while eating his breakfast was by the Mahdi said, I, for different reasons, have been having a difficult time reading Franz Kafka with my morning tea and toast. So much torture, description of Wood's disorientation, sadomasochism, unexplained cruelty, appearance of rodents, beetles, vultures, and other grotesque creatures, all set out against a background of utter helplessness, distinctly not a jolly way to start the day. Kafka doesn't make for very comforting reading at bedtime either. Hypochondriac, insomniac, food fetishist, crippling indecisive, terrified by life, obsessed with death. Franz Kafka turned, as best he was able, his neurosis into art. As a character in Isaac Bashevis' Singer's story, a friend of Kafka says, Kafka was a homo spanus in his highest degree of self-torture. Still, the consensus remains that Franz Kafka is a modern master more specifically in the modernist tradition. Housed in the same pantheon as Joyce, Picasso, Stravinsky, Mallarmé, and other artists who have radically altered the contemporary understanding of the world. Kafka created obscure lucidity. Eric Heller wrote in his book on Kafka, he is an art more poignantly and disturbingly obscure, he added, than literature has ever known. One thinks one grasps Kafka's meaning, but does one really? All seems so clear, yet is it truly? A famous Orism of Kafka's reads, hiding places there are innumerable. Escape is only one, but possibilities of escape, again, are as many as hiding places. Another runs, a cage, went in search of a bird. As with Kafka's orisms, so with his brief parables. The parables, Walter Benjamin wrote, are never exhausted by what is explainable. On the contrary, he took all conceivable precautions against the interpretation of his writings. Whatever these precautions may have been, they were inadequate. For the works of Franz Kafka, apart perhaps only from the Bible and the works of Shakespeare, may be the most relentlessly interpreted, if not over-interpreted in the modern world. The September 7, 2012 issue of the Times Literacy Supplement ran a review by Gabriel Josipovich of several recent books on Kafka. Franz Kafka, The Poet of Shame and Guilt by Saul Friedlander is another strong entry in the derby. Friedlander is by trade not a literacy critic but a historian. His affinity for Kafka is historical and personal. Like Kafka's, his family, German-speaking and Jewish, originated in Prague. His father went to the same university Kafka did, though some 15 years later. As Kafka lost his three sisters, so did his Friedlander lost his parents in Nazi camps. Friedlander is well aware of the competing theories about the meaning of Kafka's small body of work, which includes 3 uncomplicated novels, some 24 substantial short stories, an assemblage of parables, and fragments like shorter wax diaries, collections of letters, and the famous letter to his father, which he never sent. Friedlander's method in this short book is to weave back and forth between the life and the work in an attempt to explain Kafka's significance. He doesn't doubt Kafka's greatness, though he resists explaining in what exactly it resides. His own view is that Kafka was the poet of his own disorder. Friedlander writes, the issues torturing Kafka most of his life were of a sexual nature. Although he doesn't say so explicitly, he appears to believe that Kafka was a repressed homosexual, that the shame and the guilt Friedlander mentions in his subtitle were chiefly over Kafka's hidden sexuality. He offers no lineage proof and at one point goes so far as to say it is highly improbable that Kafka ever considered the possibility of homosexual relations. Yet, in Kafka's stories, Friedlander finds there is a secret to be uncovered, something that the protagonist attempts to hide. Doesn't this bring us back to Kafka's constant efforts to hide his sexual leanings? In the unending critical Easter egg hunt for the secret meaning in Franz Kafka's fiction, Friedlander has retrieved the gay egg. At one point, Friedlander remarks on Kafka's interest in young boys. At another, he notes Kafka's representation of women is grimace at best. At still another, he mentions a youthful homoerotic interest in France. In A Country Doctor, what in the sight of a boy separating worms is, Friedlander agrees with another critic, symbolic of the Virginia. We sleep tonight, criticism stands guard. Kafka, the critic Jeremy Adler holds, is less dazzling than Proust, less innovative than Joyce, but his vision is more stark, more painful, more obviously universal than that of his peers. Kafka's universality derives from his high level of generality. Places are not named, most characters go undescribed, landscapes, sere and menacing, appear as they might in nightmares. Joyce and Proust walk from detail to generality. Kafka walks from generality to detail, giving his fiction the feeling that something deeply significant is going on. If only we could grasp what precisely it is. The vicinity of literature and autobiography could hardly be closer than it is with Kafka. Eric Heller wrote, indeed, it almost amounts to identity. The broader lineaments of Kafka's autobiography are well known. Taken together, they constitute a life of nearly unrelieved doubt and mental suffering. From Kafka's letter to his father, we know that Hermann Kafka was strong and oppressive. A man who left his son with a permanent feeling of inadequacy. We know the drudgery of Kafka's job as a lawyer at the Workmen's Accident Insurance Institute in Prague, and the first-hand acquaintance it gave him with the tedious entanglements of bureaucracy, entanglements that now go by the name Kafkaesque. Perhaps most pertinent in his misfired love affairs. Kafka was engaged to two women, one of them twice and never married. He died in 1924 at 40 of tuberculosis without having quite lived, except during those solitary nights that, in trance-like exaltations, he devoted to his writing. Before his death, he instructed his stalwart friend Max Brod to destroy much of his work, but against Kafka's wishes, Brod chose not to do so, thereby becoming a minor hero of literature. The crouching father figure comes in for a good workout in such Kafka stories as the Metamorphosis and the Judgment. Other stories present pure, unexplained angst. These are the stories whose characters are being severely punished for petty crimes or even for crimes they are unaware of having committed. Conveying nightmares in sharp detail, these stories chronicle the unraveling of lives in which ill logic becomes plausible, guilt goes unexplained, and brutal punishment is doled out for no offense. Such is the art of Franz Kafka. In his Kafka biography, The Tremendous World I Have Inside My Head, Louis Bagley, one of the best interpreters of Kafka's life, especially of his relationships with women, claims that Kafka wrote about the human condition. Eric Heller held that Kafka's writing transcended most realities of the age. Neither man, though, tells quite how Kafka did these things. Benjamin Bagley, Heller, Friedlander, and other critics who take Kafka's greatness as self-evident agree that Kafka can't be either explained or judged in the same way as other literary artists. Benjamin believed that Kafka's entire work constituted a code of gestures which surely had no definite symbolic meaning for the author from the outset. Rather, the author tried to derive such a meaning from them in ever-changing context and experimental groupings. In Kafka's fiction, Friedlander writes, the truth remains inaccessible and is possibly non-existent. Bagley, remarking on an object referring to as Overrated in 5-paragraph exercise of Kafka's called The Cares of a Family Man, writes, some things can't be explained. With the Metamorphosis, Kafka's most famous story, Heller writes, it defies any established intellectual order and a familiar form of understanding, and thus arouses the kind of intellectual anxiety that greedily and compulsively reaches out for interpretations. In his Times Literacy Supplemental Review, Josipovich, noting that 100 years have passed since Kafka wrote his story, The Judgment, as we are probably no nearer to understanding that or any other of his works today than his first readers were, nor should we expect to be. Kafka, in other words, is given a pass on criticism. The argument is that he can't finally be explained, but merely read, appreciated, and reread until his meaning somehow washes over you. What if this meaning seems oddly secure and in our day even outmoded in a way great literature never is? As Friedlander underscores, Kafka coming to his maturity as a German-speaking Jew in anti-Semitic Prague, that is a minority twice over, and the anti-Semitism was too worsened after World War I. Kafka began writing in the closing years of Austro-Hungarian Empire, a time when Sigmund Freud emphasized the centrality of sexual life in human development. Touching on the hothouse intellectual atmosphere of his time, Bagley quotes the German critic Willy Haas. I can't imagine how any man can understand him at all who was not born in Prague in the period of 1980 to 1990. And March, it is true, isn't easily understood. For a man who claimed to be understanding the lash of a tyrannical father, Kafka nevertheless lived at home until he was 31. He insisted that his job stified him, yet he never left it until compelled by illness. He strung women alone. Poor Phyllis Bauer, twice his fiancée over the course of several years, holding out promises of marriage on which he didn't deliver. Kafka felt that his talent was for poetry my dream-like inner life, but dreams, however creepy they can be, are aesthetically unsatisfying, especially in their endings. Kafka himself didn't find the ending of the Metamorphosis his greatest story satisfying, and it isn't. Perhaps for the same reason he was unable to complete his novels. Dreams, especially nightmares, want for artistic endings. Another character in Singer's a friend of Kafka says of Kafka's novel The Castle, it's too long for a dream. Legends should be short. Torn and dour though Kafka's fiction is, it is not entirely bereft of humor or comic touches in dark situations. Horses stare through windows into human habitations. An elderly bachelor is followed around in his apartment by two bouncing balls. Absurdity runs amid terror. When he once read the first chapter of the trial aloud for an audience, Kafka laughed at the situation in which he had placed his main character. But the comedy is not what one remembers in the novel or in any other of Kafka's writings. Kafka is credited with prophetic powers because he predicted through his novels The Trial and the Castle the totalitarian rhymes that cross after his death, especially that of the Soviet Union with its arbitrary, insane, crushing, yes, Kafkaesque, bureaucratic apparatus for killing. But today, the stories of the fatherly tyranny carry too strong an odor of the moribund doctrine of Sigmund Freud, the Oedipus complex, and all that. Kafka claimed to have been thinking about Freud's doctrines when he wrote his breakthrough story, The Judgment, about a father who sentences his son to death by drowning, causing the young man to jump off a bridge. The centrality of dreams in his stories also reflects Freud's certainty about the significance of the dream life. The spread of fatalism and the rise of Kafka's reputation ran, not without good reason, in parallel. Kafka reads like Freud, fictionalized. Freud's reputation is now quite properly in radical decline. Kafka's somehow lives on without belief in Freud. Kafka's stories lose their weight and authority, all of which brings up the question of whether Franz Kafka is truly a major writer. His greatest proponents, insisting that he is, can't say why and ask for a permanent moratorium on conventional criticism of his writing. His detractors, a distinct minority, feels that what he left Earth is that sad story of a lost soul destroyed by modern life. In the end, Henry James wrote in an essay on Turgenev, what we want to know about a writer is, how does he feel about life? Kafka found it unbearably complicated, altogether daunting, and for the most part joyless, and so described it in his fiction. This is not, let us agree, the best outlook for a great writer. Great writers are impressed by the mysteries of life. Poor Franz Kafka was crushed by them.